Hello, everyone, and welcome to People of Interest. I'm your host, Miguel Guanipa. People of Interest, as you know, is a show that's based on stories from people like me and you. Today, I have a very special guest. It's a very nice lady. I just found out that her parents are native of Colombia, or her father's a native of Colombia. I'm from Venezuela, which is very close to Colombia. And she's a friend, and we'll find out more things about her as we talk to her, and she can tell us a story. Her name is Victoria Muscolino. Victoria, thank you
See.
very much for joining me. I
Thank you
am
for
so
having
glad.
me. Thank you
It
for having me.
seemed today that everything seemed to be mitigating about towards or against you being here for some reason. I had trouble at home. At work, I had to go into the city. I didn't know
Did
whether I
you?
was going to get back in time. Then I got here, and you just made it, which is wonderful. So
Yes. Oh, good.
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So are you glad about that? You glad you're here?
I am. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to share my story or whatever.
All right, let's talk about your story then a little bit. Tell me about a little bit. Let's talk about your family a little bit,
Okay.
and tell me you have how many siblings do you have?
I have a lot of siblings. Well, I have I have three half siblings and
Yeah.
one full sibling. My father, as you mentioned, is from Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
So he came to America and met a woman and had two children, and
Okay.
met another woman and had another child, and
Oh,
then
okay.
met my mother, and there was my sister and I. So
Number three.
there's five altogether.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Wow.
And so I grew up in California,
Mhm.
and in 2000, my mother and my sister and my mother had divorced my father. It was not a healthy marriage.
Mm.
So she raised us on her own, and we moved to Boston or to Massachusetts in
Yeah.
2000 to help plant a church. Met my husband years later. We have two kids
Mm-hmm.
and a guinea pig. For
Two
now.
kids and a guinea pig. So, I didn't know that. Okay, I didn't know that your father was not a part of the picture then.
He is
Oh,
not. No,
okay.
he was when I was younger.
Okay. Do you
Yeah.
remember him? Do you remember
I
him?
do. I do remember him. I don't remember a lot from my childhood because there was a lot of abuse in the family with the kids and my mother. It was just a lot of chaos, and that was going on. So there are bits and pieces that I remember.
Yeah.
Some I wish I didn't remember. Others I'm thankful for still to this day, that just fun memories with my siblings and stuff, and camping and just, doing some fun family things. But about like teenage years is when we moved away. My mother felt a calling to follow
So your mother,
us here. or
your mother and
come
your
here.
family, and you and your sisters and brothers, you came from California over here, and your mother's heart was to start a church.
So in California one day, it was my mother and my sister and myself. My sister's a couple years younger. Someone had come to church. We lived in Santa Cruz, California, on the Bay Area. And we were at church, and someone from Seattle, a pastor, had come and said, hey, we're looking to, my wife and I are looking to start, oh no, he wasn't married, but he said, I and a couple other people are going to plant a church in Boston. We're here to see if anyone wants to join us. I know no one knows me, but pray about that and let us know. And my mother, we had gotten into the car, and she said, that wasn't that like interesting, and what do you girls think about that? And at the time, we were just teenagers and
Yeah.
kind of just doing our own thing. In that, I think church was something we did, but was not something that really was like real for us, at least for myself.
You just went to church because your mother went and took
Yeah, it
you,
was
and
like fun, and but it wasn't like, it was like my church life and then like my social life. It was different. It wasn't like just because the way
was your
things had
social
turned
life a
out.
little different than your church
Oh,
life?
definitely.
Anyway, Karen, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's good. And so we were like, yeah, let's go to Boston. That sounds like fun, you know. And my mom was like, oh, that's not what I was expecting to get back from that. And she had prayed about it, and she heard from the Lord that he had told her, after praying about it, he said that this would be for your children. I want you to go. It would be for your children. And she was like, all right. And so that kind of started we basically sold our really small, really expensive place in California and bought a really small, really expensive place in Newton. And we had several families come with us from the West Coast and lived with us for a little bit in Newton, helped plan a church. They all finally got their own homes because it was a very small house, and I don't know how we all fit in there for the short time that we were there. And that's kind of how we
So this
got
was
there.
a church that you in California that you went to,
Yes.
and then the person in there decided, okay, why don't we'd like to go to Boston, and your mother jumped in with you
Yes.
guys, and you guys were excited about it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Excited, and then we were like, whoa, what do we sign up for? Because then we're like,
Yeah.
it was exciting and different, and I'm like, looking back, I'm like, I wonder, like, how did that work out? Because, that was just like a really big change to do in the middle of
You were
high
a
school.
teenager. You're like,
Yeah, in the middle of high school, so, but we did it.
Are you as adventurous today as you were then, you think, or?
Sure. Yeah, I'm like, I just go if that's where I feel like, yes, I would say yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
if God's calling me to go somewhere, I would go. So, yeah.
Okay, well let's talk a little bit about that then, because I think that people will be interested in maybe dissecting that a little bit, so they understand what you mean by my relationship with God. So, where was it then? Sort of, you were saying first of all that your social life was a little different than your church life, but you still went to church and you still were part of it. But so, what does that mean? If you wanted to explain to people what that meant.
It meant that, again, I try and like look back at some of the details because it's just very gappy, but so it was separate. It was so my mother did the best she could, and she did a great job, and I love her dearly, and I'm so thankful for everything she did because I just don't know how she did it all. But she worked full time, and we grew up going to church always, went on Sundays and did church things, and then as we grew older, and just having, growing up with pain and hurt and confusion and insecurities that weren't really, dealt with and healed, it just led to a lot of poor self-image and poor thinking and choice making, and then of course having shame and guilt and not wanting to let people know what was really going on, my mother included in that. It just led to two separate lives. Like, I had my church life, and that was really great, and I loved it, and I loved the people there, but I didn't feel like and then when I wasn't at church and I was at school, and there was the pressures of the things at school, and not having that support, or just not being able to sort through all that stuff, it just led to the split.
So this is you looking back and you recognizing
Recognizing
these
it,
things.
yeah.
That while you were in it, you were just living life, and
Right.
whatever was happening, you just not that you were able to look back, you see some of the issues there, or some of the things that were going the wrong or not the right direction, or whatever. That's
Right.
just looking back. So, was there a time, if we can move forward a little bit? Then there was a time, I guess, because you're not in the same place today.
Right, yeah.
Right. So, at one point, there was probably the beginning of a new path.
Yes.
Okay, so we can talk a little bit about that. Like, when do you feel that you got that some of those turns or that turn that you decided, okay, this is different. This is going to be different than what it was.
Yeah. So, in California, around the time or shortly before having moved here, I'd gotten into just some stuff, and that stuff when I moved here, of course, didn't, it followed me, like the choices that I had been making there followed me here, and had so after moving here and being in high school for a little bit, had a boyfriend. We stayed together for a couple of years. It was a very unhealthy, very codependent relationship. At the time, I wouldn't have said that in the beginning, but I wanted, and really, I just wanted to, have love, feel loved, feel valued, feel like I was important, feel like I'm naturally a very compassionate, I want to help people, and this person was very hurting. I mean, he was a very hurting person, and hurting people hurt people, so it was just, it was verbally abusive, it was controlling, it was, you're not allowed to have friends, but I wanted to be the person to kind of help make it better, and that just snowballed and never got better. It always got worse. So there was a lot of lying, a lot of, to my mother, and staying out late, and her wondering where I was, and calling the cops, and there was just a lot of things that happened that I regret. But anyway, so we had made the decision to go to Arizona for school. I was going to go to school. He was going to go to school there, and I was going to follow him and do my own thing there. We were going to live together, and we did. And I wasn't happy. It was, but it was hard to break away from the relationship. And it escalated, and it got to a point where there was some physical abuse. And so I remember one day, when he had gone and left the apartment, I remember just crying out and saying out loud to God, because I knew of God, and I knew there was a God, and I knew He loved me. That's what I'd been told, And I remember saying out loud and crying, God, this can't be your best for me. This cannot be it. I can't do this anymore, and I can't do this my way, because all up to that point, it was about me. It didn't seem like that, but it was me managing my life and trying to have control, and it didn't bring me to anywhere good. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore, and this cannot be the rest of my life, because it's just getting worse and worse. And I'd gone to work that day, and I'm sure I was a mess, because my coworker, who really didn't know me, I just moved to the state and had just gotten this job. She said, "Are you okay, Victoria?" And then I was, I'm sure, breaking down crying, and told her what had happened, and I told her that I wanted to leave, and she's like, "Let's do that. I'm going to help you, and let's do this right now. I'll go to your apartment, and we'll pack all your things, and we'll just leave." And in that moment, I can look back. I mean, there were so many things that happened after that that were just, could only be done by God. There's just, He opened doors that were impossible to be opened and to be done. And I can't take credit for it. And looking back, I was like, that was the moment when I finally was like surrendering. Like, I had come to the bottom, and I was just like, I can't do this. I want to let go, and I want to do it your way. And just at that point, it was like the turning point. And then all these really neat things happened. made my way back home, and
So what were some of those doors that were opening? Do you recall some of them?
the doors were immediately, I had called my mother. I'm trying to remember. So I had called my mother and told her what had happened, and up to that point, I thought she was just so disappointed in me. I thought she was so angry at me. I couldn't, and sorry,
It's okay.
I'm thinking. She, of course, I mean, she just responded with such a heart of love, and instantly was like, whatever you need, let me know. I'll give it to you. I'll get it to you. And just welcomed me with open arms. This woman that I had there was no reason that she would have needed, it was just like for this person that I didn't really know to just drop everything. We literally left work like at that moment, and we did all this stuff. She gave me things from her home that I didn't have. It gave me a pillow and a blanket and things like that. We had gone to an apartment complex nearby, and I met with the I don't know what you call the person that takes care of the apartments. Yeah. And we had gone, and I remember her and I were sitting in his office, and we said we need an apartment. He was like, oh well, it's going to take like a week at least. We have to do all the screening and this and the other. And that was disappointing to hear, because I had just left what I knew, a home and like somewhere to stay, and to think that I had nowhere to go and nowhere to sleep. And he was like, you know what, let me be right back. So he stepped out of the room, and he came back minutes later, and he said, you know what, here's your apartment, here's your keys, this is your place, why don't you go? Like, it's yours, don't even worry about it. And some other things happened. I needed a place to stay that night. It all kind of is blurry, but there was restraining orders that I needed to get from this person that ended up not honoring the breakup, and God just moved and opened doors to protect me, and my mother ended up coming and driving. No, she flew from Boston and drove me back home. And
Wow.
and then God just opened opportunities and relationships with people that I hadn't had before. I wasn't allowed to have friends before when I was dating this person, and was very
right,
isolated.
really?
So
It's a very controlling person.
yes. So I came back home and immediately was plugged into a church that we were connected with in Ashland. I was plugged in and had community with other young adults, and it was really, really good. And God just so kindly and tenderly, it was like he was like, I was waiting for you. I was waiting for you to surrender and let go of doing your way, and just trust me and watch me. Watch, I'm going to move. And over the years, as I've learned about the heart of God and learned about his nature and his love for his people, all of us, it has totally transformed my thinking and my perspective, and given me hope and joy, even though life is not always so
Not always perfect.
joyful.
Yeah.
So
That's wonderful.
yeah, it is really, he's good. He's really good.
So out of a really pretty bad situation, then got restored a lot of
Yes.
things.
Yeah, I had come home, and maybe like a year later, I'd found out that person that I had been in a relationship with, my heart breaks for him. I'm hoping that he's in a better place now, because, but he had come home shortly after I had come back home too, to the same town, except my mother had moved us immediately out of that town so that he didn't know where we were. And he ended up going to jail for physically harming and threatening a woman's life that he was dating right away. And I was just really grateful that that wasn't me, because I'm sure in time that could have been. And so I hope that he got the help that he needed. But yeah.
So you kind of like, do you like the story of the prodigal son?
I do, and it very much reminds me of that. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I told my daughter about that story the other day. I was like, my daughter, our youngest is Symphony. Her name's Symphony is 7, and I was telling her about the story, about that, and I said, a long time ago, 'cause she loves life stories. Every night she's like, Mom, tell me a life story. I'm like, Mommy's running out of life stories. Daddy, tell me a life story. It's Daddy's turn.
They love
But
the life stories.
they totally do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and that's God's heart. He's the greatest storyteller, and we're all part of his story. And so I'm like, you're just like God. Like, it's no wonder that you love stories, because you're part of God's story. But I was telling her about, Mommy used to make a lot of bad choices, and I didn't get into the details, but I said, it's just like the prodigal son. He had taken his inheritance from his father and gone and spent it all and had nothing, and it ended up living with the pigs, because he had nothing. And he was like, one day realizing, after leaving his brother and his father and all that he had, living with the pigs, thinking like, this wasn't really what I had hoped and planned for, and having been irresponsible with his money, now having nothing, didn't think that his father would welcome him back home, but he did. This is a story from the Bible. I don't know if I said that, but
yeah, no, that's good. Yep.
yeah, but he came home expecting, shame and all this stuff from his father, and his father was like, son, you came home, I've been waiting for you, and get the biggest animal, and we're gonna have a feast. And it was a party, and that was just like what God did for me. And I told my daughter that,
Yeah. Huh.
and so
So something
it's
you
a great
identify.
story.
But I personally love the part that's great. You just told the prodigal son story, so that's great. People haven't heard it before. So, but I love the part that I love the most about that story is when it says that the father saw him and ran towards him, and I love that, because the father was so eager to have his son come back.
Yes,
And
yes.
just ran on the. But anyway, so you mentioned. Thank you for the story.
You're
You
welcome.
mentioned you have a couple of daughters.
Yes.
And so I am aware that one of your daughters has gone through some challenges.
Selah.
Selah, yes.
Selah.
So, want to talk about that a little bit? And
Sure.
how that has played also in your relationship with God? Or?
Yeah, so, let's see. How do we begin the story? So, Selah is 9 years old. When, I'm going to go really far back for just a moment. When
okay.
we were pregnant with Selah, we were trying to think of a name to name her, and my husband, we were kind of going back with names, and he's like, oh, I got it, I got the name. And I said, what is it? And he said, Selah. And I said, Selah? And he's like, yeah, it's from the Bible. It means to pause and reflect. It's actually such an old word that it doesn't have like a direct definition, but the way it's used in the Bible, it's from the book of Psalms, and it's referenced many times. But the Psalms in the Bible was a book that you would sing, and in some of the verses it says Selah at the end, and so it's used as a pausing reference where you would stop and reflect. The words that you sang or the greatness of God is what they say. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really love that. So we had called my mother immediately. I was calling my mom, like, Mom, we thought a name for the baby. You're never going to guess what it is. There's no way that she's going to guess. And she's like, all right. And I said, it's from the Bible, but it's not someone's name. And she was like, oh, I know. And I said, what is it? She said, it's Selah. And I'm like, Mom, how did you know that? She's like, I don't know. It just came to me. I'm like, well, that's it. So Selah was born in May 2010. And she was a healthy baby, healthy delivery, but about a year old. She wasn't speaking. Usually, like around that age, they start having little babbles and can say "mama," "dada," and more. I'm not really sure what else, but she didn't have a lot of those, many of those. She could say, it was just kind of like blah 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 blah, and the doctor, after waiting some more, and then we noticed that she was well, as an infant she would pause and she would arch her back, and then she would come back, and I remember taking video and sending to the doctor, and they were like, yeah, I think she's just doing it, and I was like, all right. But then over time we noticed some skin markings, and her pausing became more frequent and more demonstrative. And about a year and a half old, we had done some testing and seen some specialists, and they had done a brain MRI with a neurologist, because I said, I think she's having seizures. And they said, oh, well, she's kind of young to have seizures. But let's do an MRI, and we'll double check. We'll do an EEG, and they'd stick electrodes on her head, and they had found abnormal cell clusters in her brain, and then linking the other things that were going on. She was diagnosed with a genetic disorder called Tuberous Sclerosis complex, and it can manifest with a number of different ways, and one of the ways is seizures. Another is developmental delays, which explain why she wasn't speaking. Speech delays is another one. Many of the people with this might be on the autism spectrum, which she is on the autism spectrum. She has a couple, and there's other physical manifestations, skin markings, and heart and vision, and other parts of the body things. So that was, I remember calling my husband. He was away at a conference, and I told him, with Selah and my baby in the back seat, just crying, and giving him the news, and he was very encouraging, and he was like, it's okay, we're gonna pray over this, we're gonna God's got this, and then that's where the journey of that started. It's been 9 years, and it's been a tough, bumpy road, but we are believing that, we know just from God's word that he doesn't, this is not his best for us. From reading his word and knowing his character and his nature, and seeing what Jesus did, and knowing that Jesus does nothing apart from the Lord, and their hearts are the same. We know that God's heart for Selah is to be well, and so we're believing for healing. Why that hasn't happened yet, but that doesn't mean that God's not good, and that his word isn't true, and his nature isn't reliable and dependable, and we put our hope in him. But that doesn't mean, like I said, that every day is easy, and that there aren't days where you just get upset and lose hope. But he's big enough to hear it, and to hold me, and to hold us, and but yeah, she's a beautiful girl. She has such a big heart. She does have seizures, is a big challenge right now. She's not verbal right now, but she's very sweet. She's very funny, and she's such a love. And recently had reached out to our community for a seizure alert dog, and God just moved on that, and we raised like $17,000 in a day and a half of people wanting to love on her and pour out on her for that dog, which we're really excited about. So I'm just saying that to say, like, she's just a love, and she's impacted people in ways that you would never think. And she's taught me a lot about being patient and being kind, not being judgmental before having kids. You know, I remember seeing, you know, as a young woman, seeing kids crying and just being like, why isn't the mom and dad, like, taking care of that kid? And now I just like, yeah, okay, you don't know what is going on in the other person's shoe. I mean, you just have to have grace, because you just don't know what's going on. And so she has taught me to have grace and to be kind and to be patient and to be selfless, and to have faith. So, yeah.
That's great. That's a great story. I want to ask you a difficult question.
Sure.
This one is difficult. This one is, it's not that difficult. but
Okay.
It's kind of, it could be, it's not tricky either, but I wonder if you will say it, if you will pick it up right away, but I don't know how else to ask it. Have you ever seen the face of Christ on somebody? Or have you been in a situation where you saw the face of Christ?
Can you explain what you mean by that?
All right, I'll explain. When I went to your house, and Selah was walking around, and I guess she walks a little bit and kind of like tries to feel her way around and
Oh
find out
yeah,
what's
she's
going
very
on.
sensory, likes to
Yeah,
feel. And
but it was time for her to go to bed, I guess. So I saw you hold her, and at that moment I saw the face of Christ. That's the way in which I'm asking that question.
Oh,
That's only the second time that I seen that
where was it?
in your house.
But where was it in the house? Do you remember?
You were in the hallway, so you're holding her,
Yeah,
and you were just trying to calm her down.
yeah.
And so that was for me an experience where I experienced that.
Oh, okay.
There was another time in the past, but that
So
one
do you
was
mean like figuratively, or I mean literally?
figuratively, and,
Oh,
and in
okay.
a sense of I remember only one other person talking about it. It was Chuck Colson one time. He had a prison ministry, and he said that one time he was at a prison in Brazil, and so he was kind of like walking through the crowd, greeting the prisoners, and suddenly he said he saw the face of Christ. And then later on, when in looking back at it, he realized that and found out that there was a woman that had kind of sort of like embedded herself into the community of prisoners, and she had been kind of like ministering to them.
Oh, okay.
But for him was that experience of I saw the face of Christ. So he didn't see Christ with a beard.
Oh,
and all
that's
that.
right.
It was,
I was like, you can't say
but it
that.
was that's the face of Christ.
Yeah, I have seen, I mean, I've definitely experiencing the love. I've definitely experienced the love of Jesus through people. I mean,
Yeah.
so many times, like, but nothing is coming out to mind specifically. But yeah, nothing is, but I mean, through people's love, like through people's, just the way they respond. I'm trying to think of something specific, but like if someone could love, like their acts, like their love like Christ, like if someone were to do something, I'm trying to like put into specifics how it is. I remember I told you, I was like, I'm gonna try and say something and it's not
That's
gonna
fine.
come out.
Keep trying, keep going. And look at your husband, for example, a very important person in your life, that
Yeah.
God, very specific person that, especially now that you tell me about the past.
Yeah.
And I think Joy is the complete opposite of
Of
that kind
that.
of a person.
Yes. I see God's love in many ways. I think that's maybe what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
I see God's love.
I told you it was a difficult question.
I see God's love pour out on me, yes, through the person that I'm married to, through people loving selflessly on my daughter, like I mentioned to you through the dog thing. I see God's love for me when I look at my children and they love on me, or they look at me, or we have this sweet interaction where I'm just like, oh my gosh, Lord, like you're just so incredible. I can't believe that you love me this way, that you love me so much. So I've had moments where, many moments, even like that woman helping me as a young woman, that she would love me that way. So that's how I feel like I many times in the week see that tangible manifestation of just God's love. Yes, through my husband, through my children, through friends. I can think of many times where God's just loved us through people. We've had people give us a car when we needed a car. We've had people give us, someone knew we needed a washer and dryer, and they said, here's my card, go pick out what you want, and whatever you need, top of the line, like that's okay. We've had people, we were putting money aside for a pellet stove. We needed heat in our home, and we'd gotten a call from the pellet stove store in town. Mr. and Miss Muscolino, someone just came in and paid the balance on your stove and bought you a few tons of pellets. When can you pick it up? Things like that, where it's just like, so that is really incredible, and can't take credit for that. And I love that God moves not only in miraculous ways where it's knowing, like it's not through people, and then there's ways that he does it through people, which is beautiful.
That's kind of like, that's an answer to that question.
Oh,
me,
good.
Because that is the face
Yes.
of Christ.
Yeah.
When you see that. So now you were diligently looking at some of those questions that I
He gave me many questions to kind of think of in my head of what you might ask me.
I said you didn't have to, but so one story that you like in the Bible is the Prodigal Son, because you identify with it.
Yes.
Whether when you, one thing I wanted to know how to ask, but I don't know if it's too sensitive. But am I correct in thinking that your father was probably a big part of why the things that happened in your life happened?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. My father was. I didn't know this at the time, and I guess I wouldn't have known because it probably wasn't maybe appropriate for me to know. But my father was abused when he was younger by his mother, and so my father, was hurting. I say it, hurting person, and he hurt people.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he was very persuasive, very manipulative. And so my mother stayed around for a while, and but yeah, his choices affected siblings and my mother. Yeah, it affected everyone. It was just this weird stuff that it wasn't really known by everybody until everyone got a little older, and then everyone kind of started talking and sharing, and things started coming out. But yeah, it had a big impact on our
Where are your
family.
siblings right now? Are they close by? Or they live in different places? Or California, one of them?
Yeah, one is here and the rest are in California.
They're all in California. Do you get to interact with them?
I do. I do. I have two older brothers and an older sister. One brother, unfortunately, I'm not in communication as often with. I think he was really hurt when we left California and came here. He was we were all younger, and I think maybe I think that hurt him, and I don't know if that maybe was a reason why, or maybe there are other reasons why, but we talk now and then. My older two siblings I talk with more regularly. But because of the nature of their relationship with everybody, so some of us kind of cut ties with my dad because it just, I remember having a conversation with him and saying, do you acknowledge that you did this? And he said, no, everyone's lying. And I said, well, then I can't have you in my life, because if you can't acknowledge that this was done, I can't have you in my life, and I certainly don't want him in my children's life. If it was like I did something wrong and I'm sorry, and maybe a relationship could be there with boundaries, but some of the other siblings, that was hard to cut that off. They're there still, and it's their maybe closest other relative that they have, and so it's kind of created some odd, things in the dynamic of the kids, but God is good, and I can see how he's worked things for good. He's taken a really broken, hurting family, and over the years, I found his love, and I've learned about the nature of his heart, which has given me a lot of freedom from a lot of the stuff and a lot of the bitterness and unforgiveness and stuff that I was wrestling with. And my other sister, same thing with her. And my other sister, she has come to know the Lord and learning about God, and she's just doing so well. Like she's helping people, other people who've been victims of abuse. So God is redeeming as we open up to his heart. He is there, and his word is waiting. It's like a present waiting to be opened, but we have to open it. And so as they've been opened and explored, there's been freedom, and so I'm believing that there will be continued freedom and life and redemption. Yeah.
All the good things.
Yes.
As your mother has been pretty stabilizing force in the picture then?
She's been a what?
Stabilizing force, a pretty good figure to have in there to kind of bring things together.
Yeah. She is always looking, being a child, I didn't see any of this, but looking back now, she left my father and had also grown up in the church, and her mother had been close with the Lord and knowing about God, and so there was a lot of that in her. There was a lot of having also come from my mother, having come from an abusive home. She had a lot of stuff that she was needing to work through, and didn't really start facing a lot of that until after she had left my father. And over the years, it's a lifelong journey, right? It's not like overnight everything's great, and it's not always everything's great now, but it's been a journey, and seeing her over the years cling to the Lord, as clinging to the word. The Bible says that he's a father to the fatherless, he's a husband to the widow, and she held on to those scriptures, and she invested in that friendship, and with the Lord. And over the years, there's been fruit that has come from that. And if I were to ask her, if someone were to ask her now, you know, how did you raise your 2 children? How did you raise those children on your own? She'd say, I wasn't alone. I was with the Lord. You know, He had me the whole way. He did. I mean, she bought a house. She bought our house in California with $100 and a promise to pay her mortgage. I mean, just He's provided opportunities for employment and just, I mean, just things that you just can't take credit for. I mean, He really has proven Himself faithful all along the way, and it's been neat to see her over the years grow in her faith and her boldness, and it's changed her heart over the years, and she's not who she was anymore. She's definitely gotten a lot of freedom from a lot of the stuff that she had been put on her as a young girl into her 20s and 30s. But yeah, she is my greatest earthly inspiration for sure.
Oh, that's great.
And she's helped a lot of people along the way, opening her home to women that needed a place to stay. And but even today, she's a great woman of faith and of integrity and character.
So believe it or not, we're almost out of time. I want to ask you, what is one of this strength that you have because you're a Colombian? What does that mean?
What is the strength that I have?
As a Colombian.
I'm very, my husband calls it spicy.
Yeah.
So I have a temper. I've been known to, yeah, you wouldn't,
Spicy.
people say, they're like, no, I can never seen you raise your voice for term. Like, oh, ask my husband, he'll tell you. Yeah.
Well, time has flown by. I hope you enjoyed being here.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for sharing what you shared.
You're welcome.
And I know that if anybody picks it up, there will be, in some way or another, it'll help heal them or
I hope
encourage
so.
them. And that's the whole point of the show.
Yes.
And thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Victoria, your name is Victoria, which is great. You know how I love that, right? I told you, Victoria is here. Remember that time you came, visited us, and I told Christine, you said, oh, Victoria has arrived.
Oh, it means victorious.
It means Victoria, but doesn't it come from victory too?
Yes.
Yeah, Victoria in Spanish.
Yes.
I know Spanish. Well, thank you very much, Victoria.
You are welcome.
Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time when someone else comes and shares their story.